This video is going to look at the Mech-Q piping import-export piping utility. If we look at this group of pipes and we use Mech-Q piping to see what each individual item is, we can see that it's going to list them for what they are. That one was a 180 and this is a 90-degree elbow. Also, if we use the bill of materials, we'd be able to tag these and bring them in for a bill of materials. But what if we needed to export this pipe to a different drawing for an assembly or a skid or something? This is what we'd find. We'd have an issue here. If we take this, we'll use the clipboard because it's faster. We'll paste this with a clipboard. So let's copy it here. Select all the items. And then we'll go to our empty drawing here. And we'll use the clipboard to paste the piping in. So we'll just select it anywhere, and let's go into the area where we were before. Now if we take Mech-Q and we try and either do a bill of materials or find out what any item on it is, we'll end up with an error like this: item selected, not a Mech-Q piping item. So let's use the import-export utility, and we'll see how we can export piping entities in Mech-Q. Here we are back with our original objects we had before. Let's see how we're going to use the import-export utility to export them. But first, there's a little information you need to know. When Mech-Q makes a piping entity, it makes it with a group. This group is not exportable in any CAD engine from one drawing to another. Therefore, when you move it to another drawing, you'll find that things are not as a pipe, and that's why Mech-Q can't find them. The import-export utility is going to add something to the pipe, which is called extended entity data. So if we want to edit the extended entity data in this pipe export, we'll find we have none. Okay, so let's use the Mech-Q import-export to group all these things together so we can actually move them. So what we have here is the dialog box that controls the import-export utility. It's separated into two main sections, and in those there's several subsections. So since we're going to export, let's look at the export box that's on the left-hand side. First, we have different ways to select. Selected piping objects only, which means only the pipe, nothing else you select will be picked. All piping objects, and selected objects, all selected whether they're piping or not, or all objects in the drawing as long as they're not on a locked layer. So if we hit selected pipe only, it's going to prompt us to select objects. If we hit all piping, notice there's no prompt for select because it's going to be all of them. If it's all objects, we also don't have a select. However, all selected will give us a select. So in this case, let's just keep it simple. We'll take all selected piping objects only, and we'll copy them to the clipboard. So we have a select objects open available to us. So in this case, we'll select all these piping objects. The base point we'll use is going to be the node of this pipe again. Now we notice the export prep objects button is now available, which means we have something selected. So we're going to select that, and it says everything's complete, and so we should have our new piping now on the clipboard. So let's go to an empty drawing, and in the same way we're going to select the same option, the import-export utility. In this case, we're going to use import. Okay, so that was in the clipboard, so we're going to use paste from clipboard. Insert and adjust object is right here. This is where we want it. It's going to come back up and it's going to import objects, because right now it's just pipe in there. If we exited now, we'd have the same problem. So we're just going to hit import objects. It's going to go through and check everything and add some entity data to it. So now this, if we looked here and we used entity data, we'd find that we have extended entity data. We also find now that when we use the Mech-Q list function in this case, we'll find that all of our stuff is intact now. Now we have the 90-degree elbow, just like we had before. This is going to be the 180-degree. And now we're ready to go. So in a nutshell, this is how we use the import-export tool. Let's look at a couple other ways that we can use it to our advantage. Here I have some plumbing in a congested area here. What if my fire protection guy wanted to have this plumbing in Mech-Q and have the entity data with it so he knows what he's talking about when he's trying to run his pipe through? Let's use one of the features of the piping import-export tool to see how we can make this job go a little faster. Okay, we'll use the import-export tool just like we did before. And in this case, we just want selected piping objects. Okay, we don't want all of the objects. We don't want the structure. We don't want the architecture. So we're going to select objects here. And we can just, this is the area he wants. So we're just going to select these objects here. And nothing else. Okay, so we don't want anything else in here, the architectural entities. So once we've selected these objects here, he wants a base point. In this case, we're going to use the world 0, 0 because that'll get us in the same position he's in. Now I can't paste them like I did before, but what I can do is move them or copy them to a file. So we'll call this one here level 1 plumbing. Okay, .drawing, and save that. Now we have a prep import export button is open now, so we can use it because we know we have a selection set. And then we'll just let it do it. And once it's finished, okay, it's got it, the export's complete. We can just click OK, and that new drawing file will be on our hard drive, so we can insert it. And now we've opened a new drawing. Now this would probably be the fire protection guy's drawing. He'd have some stuff in there, but let's just see how we use the import utility if we were in there. So we want to use the Mech-Q import-export utility. In this case, we're going to use the import side. We know we wrote a file to it because we on the last export. So let's find the file. Okay, now we have the file open. This is the one we had, level 1 plumbing drawing. So we're going to open this drawing. Okay, now it's going to say insert, and now that we have a selection set, it's going to say insert and adjust. Now where we want to put this is 0, 0, 0, so it ends up in the same spot in the building. Scale factor for the block is going to be 1, and the rotation is going to be 0. Now that it's in there, we're going to use the import objects, and that's going to add our extended entity data and regroup all of the piping objects. So let it go through its routine and finish. And when we hit zoom extents, we'll be able to see our pipe. So let's go in and see what we have here. We use the wireframe, and we can go in and see all of our pipe is here. So let's go check it and see, do we have the Mech-Q information that we wanted? And let's see. Sure enough, there it is. There's a P-trap just like it was. So this is a brief overview on how to use the Mech-Q import-export pipe. You can also use it to make spool sheets. If we wanted to cut out several pieces, we could, and make our drawing much faster. Let's look at the pipe objects here. What if we wanted to use the import-export tool to export these? Let's say it's something we use multiple times in a drawing. It can be done, but there is one issue with it. So let's see what we're going to do here. Let's use the import-export utility. And in this case, let's use prep only. Okay, so just the selected piping objects, that's good right here. And we'll use prep only, which means it's just going to add the extended entity data to the groups to keep them together. So we'll put that on there and click OK. Now what if we just came in and used a regular Mech-Q cut and paste now? Well, it would be okay. So let's just copy with a base point again. We'll use the same base point we used last time. And we'll paste these in. Okay, so let's go to an empty drawing. And in this case, we could use just the paste command. So let's use the clipboard paste and paste here. Any place on the drawing is going to be fine. Now, if we try to use the AviCAD command, we'd end up with the same problem because with not recognizing it, because this is just a group of entities. So let's use the import export routine here. Now, you see one thing on here. It says previously imported by others. Other means, okay? That means what we did. We just cut that out. It had extended entity data, but it's not grouped together in this drawing. So we click this. Make sure you read this. In order for piping items to be imported correctly by this method, they must have been exported by the real-world CAD export program, which these were prior to bringing in here, because we used the prep only. So let's process objects. We have no selection because it has to go through every object in the drawing and audit its extended entity data to make sure we have no duplicates. So we're going to hit process objects. It's going to go through and say it's completed. And when we try and use piping, we're going to find that everything has worked just like we expected. Okay. The issue would become is our piping objects are in the clipboard. Okay, doing it this way is fine, but I've only used one insert. What if I took and tried to use the clipboard and paste more? Okay, this is the same one. We're going to use paste, and we're going to paste a couple of them. Okay, so we paste more than one, and we haven't used our import export. So let's paste another one here. Now let's use the Mech-Q import export. Okay, and this is previously by others because we did not use the Mech-Q. We did not use this to export them. So we're going to process objects to do everything in the drawing. Now everything looks like it's going to be okay. If I use Mech-Q, it's going to find the objects and it will look okay. We could check this and it says 180-degree turn because it's an exact copy. But what's really happened is it's looked at these. Since we didn't use the import utility and we imported several of the same, when I go to move these two are together because they had the same information attached. Because they were identical when they came in. So just make sure that every time you insert an object or paste it, you run the utility so it can audit all of the extended entity data and keep them together. Okay, now that we've seen how not to paste using the import export utility, let's see how to do it. Let's say I want this in the same drawing before, so I can use my CAD engine's copy with base point in this case. So let's copy these again. We've already prepped them, so it already has its extended entity data on it. It's all been grouped together. And now it's back at the clipboard. So let's go on our empty drawing. Let's use the paste command. You have to remember when you use the paste command, if you copied anything to the clipboard, text or anything, it's not going to be there. So let's use paste, it's like we did before, and we'll pick a spot. And let's get back to an isometric view. Alright, so now what we'll have to use the import export just like we did before. Okay, so this is import by others, and we'll use process objects. That's going to process them. So when we check them with Mech-Q, once again, we're going to find that everything came out like we expected. So let's see. Sure enough, there's our 90-degree elbow. So what if now we want to paste that again from the clipboard? How would we do that? Well, it's very simple. We can use the paste object again, and we'll paste it here. Now the only difference from this time and last time, I'm going to use the import export again on this. So we just have to do it every time we import from a clipboard without using the import. So this is previously inserted by others. So we'll just let it go through and audit everything. And if we have, if we can insert it as many times as we want to, a duplicate, but we need to run the import-export utility each time to make sure each one has a unique number. So we're just going to run it one more time. And previously imported by others. Okay. And now when we check and we select these, sure enough, they're all separated. So just make sure you run that when you use another method to insert, whether it's a W block or a paste, that you run it with each insert in case they're duplicates or there's duplicate extended entity data from one drawing to another, and that'll keep it all straightened out. I'm sure you'll find many ways to use the import-export utility for spooling and other applications, but I think you'll find that it's a very straightforward utility to use.